The champagne glass slipped from my trembling fingers, shattering against the marble floor of the penthouse, with a sound that somehow felt louder than the cruel laughter surrounding me. "Oh my God, Katherine!" Sarah's voice dripped with false concern as she leaned into Mark's ear, her whisper carrying just far enough for everyone in our circle to hear. "Did you catch how she said opportunity earlier? Opportunity. Like she's still waiting tables at some truck stop diner." The laughter that followed wasn't the polite kind you hear at charity galas. This was sharp, cutting, designed to slice through whatever dignity I'd managed to scrape together for tonight. 28 years old, MBA from Northwestern, regional director at one of the city's top consulting firms, and they still saw me as nothing more than trailer trash in a designer dress. My accent, my goddamn accent that no amount of speech therapy could completely erase. It lurked in the corners of my words like a shadow, waiting to betray me whenever I got nervous or excited. Tonight, I'd been excited. Foolishly, stupidly excited to finally tell them about my promotion. Mark adjusted his tie, the one that probably cost more than my first car, and smirked. "Come on, Sarah, be nice. Katherine can't help where she's from." He turned to me with that condescending smile I'd learned to hate. "Besides, that little accent is almost charming. Very authentic. Authentic, like I was some quaint piece of rural decor they'd picked up at a flea market. I stood there in my best dress, the black Armani that had taken 3 months of saving to afford, watching my so-called friends dissect me like specimens under a microscope. The penthouse party buzzed around us, Manhattan's elite, sipping champagne that cost more per bottle than most people made in a week, and here I was, still the outsider looking in. "You know what I love about Katherine?" This, from Jessica, Mark's wife, her voice honey-sweet and poison-tipped. "She tries so hard. Look at that dress, those shoes. She's really committed to the part. The part. As if my entire life was some elaborate performance, some desperate attempt to cosplay as someone worthy of their attention." My cheeks burned with familiar shame as I felt the weight of their stares. Every eye in the circle was on me now, waiting to see how the small-town girl would react to being put in her place. Again. "I think I need some air," I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. Even those 4 words came out wrong, the vowels too flat, too Midwestern, marking me as forever other in their carefully curated world. I turned to leave, but Sarah's voice followed me like a knife between the shoulder blades. "Oh, don't be so sensitive, Katie." She'd been calling me Katie since college, knowing I hated it, knowing it made me feel small. "We're just teasing. You know we love you exactly as you are." Exactly as I was. The charity case, the diversity hire, the girl who'd clawed her way out of a dying steel town, only to discover that success wasn't enough. It was how you wore it that mattered, and apparently I'd never learned the right way. I made it to the bathroom just as the tears started. Locking the door behind me, I gripped the marble countertop and stared up at my reflection in the gilt-framed mirror. The woman looking back was a stranger. Polished, professional, successful by any reasonable measure, but her eyes held a pain I recognized. The same hurt I'd carried since the first day of prep school, when they'd laughed at my thrift store clothes and hand-me-down backpack. The mascara threatening to run down my cheeks was Dior. The lipstick was Chanel. The earrings were real diamonds, a gift to myself when I'd made partner. None of it mattered. Underneath all the expensive armour, I was still that scared 16-year-old girl who'd won a scholarship to a world that would never truly accept her. Through the bathroom door, I could hear them starting up again, their voices carrying over the party's din. "Poor thing," Sarah was saying. "She really thought tonight was going to be different. Did you see how excited she was earlier? Actually bouncing on her toes like a puppy." "The promotion must have gone to her head," Mark added. "Regional director. Can you imagine? They're really scraping the bottom of the barrel these days." Promotion. The word hit me like a physical blow. They knew. Somehow they already knew about the job I'd been so eager to share, the achievement I'd worked 6 years to earn, and they were using it as another weapon against me. I pressed my palms against my eyes, trying to stop the tears, trying to find some scrap of dignity to carry me through the rest of this nightmare. but all I could think about was tomorrow and the day after that, and all the days stretching hence ahead where I'd have to pretend this didn't matter, where I'd have to smile and laugh and play the grateful outsider thankful for their scraps of inclusion. I wish. The words came out as a whisper, spoken to my reflection like a prayer to a God I'd stopped believing in years ago. I wish I could go back. I wish I could do this differently. I wish I could make them see who I really am. The bathroom lights flickered once, twice. For a moment, the room felt different. Charged, electric, like the air before a thunderstorm. When the light steadied, something had changed. The woman in the mirror still had my face, but her eyes held something I'd never possessed. Confidence. Real confidence. Not the brittle fake kind I'd learned to wear like armour. This was deeper, older, like it had been carved from stone and tempered in fire. When I spoke, my voice was different too. Still mine, but somehow more. They want to see who you really are? I asked my reflection, and she smiled back with teeth that seemed sharper than they'd been moments before. Then, let's show them. I straightened my shoulders, checked my makeup one final time, and opened the bathroom door. The party hadn't changed. Same people, same conversations, same casual cruelty masquerading as sophistication. But somehow, I was the only one who remembered the other version of tonight. The one where I'd run crying to the bathroom after their latest assault on my dignity. I could see it all now, like a movie playing in my head. Sarah was about to make another comment about my shoes. Mark would spill wine on his shirt in exactly 43 seconds, and in 10 minutes they'd ask me to give an impromptu toast for the host's birthday. The same request that had humiliated me just moments ago in another lifetime. But this time would be different. This time I was ready. I walked back into their circle with measured steps, my spine straight, my chin up. Sarah opened her mouth to deliver what I knew would be another cutting remark, but I spoke first. "Sarah, darling," I said, my voice carrying a subtle accent I'd never heard before. Not Southern, not British, but something that commanded attention like royalty speaking to commoners. "That's a lovely dress. Vintage, isn't it? From what, 2018? How wonderfully sustainable of you." Her mouth fell open slightly. The dress was indeed from 2018, and she'd been trying to pass it off as new all evening. Around us, I could feel the group's attention shifting, sensing something different in the air. Mark chose that moment to gesture with his wineglass, just as I'd known he would. Red wine splashed across his pristine white shirt in a perfect Rorschach blot of karma. He cursed under his breath, grabbing napkins from a passing waiter. "Oh, Mark," I continued smoothly. "How clumsy of you. Though perhaps it's for the best. Red is so much more your colour than white. Hides the stains better, don't you think?" The words were flowing from my lips like water, each syllable precise and cutting. This wasn't my voice anymore, not entirely. It belonged to someone else, someone who'd never learned to swallow their pride or bite their tongue, someone who'd been waiting a very long time to speak. Jessica stepped forward, perhaps sensing the shift in power dynamics. "Katherine, what's gotten into you? You seem different." I smiled at her, and I could see my reflection in the window behind the bar. For just a moment, another face seemed to flicker over mine. Someone older, someone with eyes like winter storms, and a mouth that had never apologised for taking up space. "Different?" I repeated, savouring the word. "How perceptive of you, Jessica. Though I suppose you'd know all about being different, wouldn't you? After all, it takes one to know one." The circle had gone quiet now, their casual cruelty replaced by something that looked almost like uncertainty. They weren't used to their victim fighting back, especially not with weapons forged from their own arsenal of sophisticated malice. But I was just getting started, because in exactly 7 minutes, our host would raise his glass and ask for someone to give an impromptu birthday toast. And when he did, I would stand up and deliver a speech that would change everything. Not just for me, but for every person in this room who'd ever used their privilege as a weapon against someone they deemed lesser. The question wasn't whether I'd gotten my wish to do things differently. The question was what price I'd have to pay for borrowing someone else's voice. and whether Katherine, the small-town girl, would survive what was about to happen, or if she'd disappear entirely into whoever had taken up residence behind my eyes. But as I watched Sarah's confident smirk fade into something that looked remarkably like fear, I found I didn't much care about the cost. Some things were worth any price. And revenge? Revenge was definitely one of them. The host's voice cut through the party chatter like a blade through silk. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention." Richard Blackwood raised his crystal champagne flute, his silver hair gleaming under the penthouse chandeliers. "As you know, tonight marks my 55th birthday, and I couldn't think of better company to celebrate with." I counted the seconds in my head. 3, 2, 1. Now, I know this is terribly impromptu, but would someone be willing to say a few words? A toast to friendship, perhaps? The room fell into that peculiar silence that follows such requests. Everyone suddenly finding their shoes fascinating, hoping someone else would volunteer for the spotlight. But I knew exactly what came next. In my previous version of tonight, this moment had been my downfall. Sarah had nudged me forward with false encouragement, knowing I'd stumble over my words, knowing my accent would betray me in front of the city's elite. But now I was ready. "I'd be delighted to," I said, my voice carrying across the room with an authority that made heads turn. That strange, ageless accent coloured every syllable. Not quite British, not quite European, but something that spoke of old money and older power. I stepped forward and the crowd parted for me like the Red Sea. This wasn't the fumbling, nervous Katherine they expected. This was someone else entirely, wearing my face like a perfectly fitted mask. "Thank you, Richard." I accepted the microphone with steady hands, feeling the weight of 60 pairs of eyes on me. In the front row, Sarah's face had gone pale, as if she sensed something predatory in my smile. "You know," I began, my voice flowing like honey over broken glass, "birthdays are such interesting occasions. They mark not just the passage of time, but the accumulation of wisdom, the shedding of pretenses, the moment when we finally see people for who they truly are." A murmur rippled through the crowd. This wasn't the typical toast about friendship and good fortune they'd expected. "Richard has asked me to speak about friendship tonight, and I find that apropos, because I have learned so much about friendship recently, about how it reveals character, about how it separates those with genuine class from those who merely purchased it." Mark shifted uncomfortably near the bar, red wine still staining his shirt. Jessica's diamond earrings caught the light as she tilted her head, confused by my tone. "You see, true friendship, real friendship, doesn't mock. It doesn't diminish. It doesn't take someone's origins and weaponize them for entertainment." My eyes found Sarah's across the room. True friendship celebrates differences rather than exploiting them for cheap laughs. The silence was growing heavier now, charged with electricity. I could feel the entity behind my voice stirring, feeding on the discomfort in the room like a shark scenting blood in the water. "But perhaps what fascinates me most about friendship," I continued, my voice dropping to barely above a whisper, yet somehow carrying to every corner of the penthouse, "is how it reveals breeding. Not the kind you can buy with trust funds and prep school tuitions, not the kind that comes with summer houses in the Hamptons or winter chalets in Aspen." A woman near the back gasped softly. These people weren't used to being challenged, especially not in their own carefully curated environment. "No, I'm talking about the kind of breeding that teaches you not to mock a person's accent, the kind that prevents you from treating another human being as entertainment, the kind that recognizes strength when it walks into a room, regardless of where that strength was forged." Sarah's champagne glass was trembling in her hand now. She knew I was talking about her, about them, about every casual cruelty they'd inflicted over the years. "Because here's what I find so deliciously ironic," I said, my smile sharp enough to cut diamonds. "The people who mock accents, who laugh at someone's origins, who treat another person's journey as somehow lesser, these people reveal far more about themselves than they do about their targets." I paused, letting the words sink in. watching faces around the room shift from confusion to discomfort to something approaching fear. They reveal their own insecurity, their own fear that maybe, just maybe, they haven't earned what they have, that maybe their position in life has less to do with merit and more to do with circumstance. And that terrifies them, because deep down they know the truth. Mark had gone white now, his jaw clenched tight. These weren't the words of the meek Katherine they knew. This was something else, something that spoke with the authority of ages. They know that someone who fought for every opportunity, who climbed every mountain while they rode in air-conditioned elevators, who succeeded despite rather than because of circumstances, they know that person is stronger, more worthy, more dangerous. The word dangerous hung in the air like a loaded gun. I could see people exchanging glances, suddenly unsure of the woman they'd dismissed so easily. So, when you mock someone's accent, I continued, my voice now carrying that otherworldly quality that seemed to reach into souls and squeeze, you're not revealing their inadequacy. You're revealing your own. You're announcing to the world that you're so fundamentally weak, so deeply pathetic, that you have to tear down others to feel remotely worthy of the life you've been handed. Sarah's champagne glass slipped from her fingers then, shattering against the hardwood floor in a spray of crystal and golden liquid. But no one moved to clean it up. No one even looked away from me. And here's the beautiful irony, I said, my smile widening as I watched their comfortable world crumble around them. While you've been playing your petty games, measuring worth by trust fund balances and prep school pedigrees, the people you've dismissed have been working, learning, growing stronger. I let my gaze sweep across the room, watching 60 of Manhattan's elite shrink under the weight of truth. They've been building empires while you've been protecting inheritance. They've been earning respect while you've been demanding it. They've been becoming exactly the kind of people you pretend to be. The microphone felt warm in my hand now, almost alive, as if the voice speaking through me was growing stronger with every word. So, yes, Richard, let's toast to friendship, but let's also toast to consequences. To the beautiful, inevitable moment when chickens come home to roost. To the day when the people you've underestimated show you exactly what they're capable of. I raised my own glass, though I couldn't remember picking it up. To everyone who's ever been mocked for their accent, their clothes, their origins, to everyone who's ever been made to feel small by people who've never had to fight for anything in their lives. Tonight, we remember our strength. Tonight, we reclaim our power. The room erupted in applause, not the polite golf clapping of high society, but something deeper, more primal, because while my words had been directed at the cruel elite, they'd resonated with everyone who'd ever been made to feel lesser. The waitstaff, the security guards, even some of the guests who knew what it felt like to be on the outside looking in. But as the applause died down and I handed back the microphone, I caught my reflection in the window behind the bar. For just a moment, a split second, I saw her clearly. The woman whose voice I'd borrowed, whose words had flowed through my lips like wine through crystal. She was older than me, elegant in the way that only came from surviving great trials. Her eyes held depths of pain I couldn't fathom, and her smile spoke of victories won at prices I didn't want to imagine. And in that moment, I realized the truth that would haunt me for the rest of my life. I hadn't gotten my voice back. I had become someone else's weapon. The question was, what did she want in return? The applause faded, but the silence that followed was deafening. Sarah stood frozen near the shattered champagne glass, her face the colour of old parchment. Mark had retreated to a corner, suddenly fascinated by his phone screen. Jessica clutched her husband's arm like a lifeline. Her earlier confidence evaporated, but I felt different, empty yet fuller than I'd ever been, like someone had reached inside me and rearranged all the furniture, making room for a new tenant. Katherine? Richard's voice seemed to come from very far away. That was quite something. I turned to him, and for a moment, I didn't recognize my own movements. They were too fluid, too graceful, like I was floating rather than walking. Thank you, Richard. I hope I didn't spoil your party. Spoil it? He laughed, but there was a nervous edge to it. My dear, you've made it unforgettable. Unforgettable. Yes, I supposed it would be that. People began approaching me then. Not Sarah's circle, they'd mysteriously vanished toward the terrace, but others. The overlooked ones, the people who usually lingered at the edges of these gatherings. A woman whose husband had lost his fortune in the recession, but still attended out of habit. A man whose startup had failed, leaving him dependent on his wife's family money. The invisible people who understood what it felt like to be judged and found wanting. That was incredible, whispered the woman, her eyes bright with tears. I've wanted to say those things for years. You gave voice to all of us, the man added, shaking my hand with both of his. That took real courage. Courage. The word felt strange in my mouth when I tried to respond, because it hadn't been courage, had it? It had been something else entirely. Something borrowed. As the crowd began to thin, I found myself alone on the terrace, the city lights blinking below like fallen stars. The night air was cool against my skin, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something vital had changed inside me. When I reached up to touch my face, my reflection in the glass doors looked wrong somehow. Still me, but more. Or maybe less. I couldn't tell which was worse. Quite a performance in there. I turned to find a woman I didn't recognise leaning against the railing. She was perhaps 60, with silver hair and eyes that seemed to hold centuries of secrets. She wore an elegant black dress that looked like it cost more than my car, but there was something timeless about her that transcended fashion. I'm sorry, do we know each other? I asked, though my voice came out smaller than intended. The commanding tone from earlier had abandoned me, leaving behind something that sounded almost like my old accent. She smiled, and it was like looking into a mirror that showed me what I might become. We know each other very well, my dear. We've been sharing the same space for the past hour. My blood turned to ice water. What do you mean? Oh, Katherine. She moved closer, and I caught the scent of something that reminded me of old libraries and forgotten graves. Did you really think that little wish of yours would come without consequences? That you could simply borrow power and return it when convenient? I backed away, but she followed, her movements predatory yet elegant. I don't understand what you're talking about. Don't you? Her laugh was like wind chimes made of bones. You stood in that bathroom desperate and humiliated, and you wished for the power to make them see who you really are. But you were never specific about whose power you wanted to use. The terrace suddenly felt much smaller, the city lights dimming as if someone was slowly turning down a cosmic dimmer switch. Who are you? I am Eleanor Ashworth, she said, and the name hit me like a physical blow. Though I suppose you wouldn't know that name. It's been 40 years since anyone spoke it with respect. Eleanor Ashworth. The name stirred something in my memory. A half-remembered scandal from decades past. You're dead. You died in 1983. Suicide, they called it, she confirmed, her voice carrying no shame, only cold fury. Though it was really murder by 1,000 cuts. Do you know what it's like, Katherine, to be destroyed by whispers? To watch your reputation, your life's work, your very identity torn apart by people who smile at you while they sharpen their knives? I did know. God help me. I knew exactly what that felt like. I was like you once, Eleanor continued. An outsider who fought her way into their world, built a financial empire from nothing while they inherited theirs, made more money in a year than most of them saw in a lifetime. But I was still the girl from the wrong side of Chicago. Still had that telltale accent that marked me as other. She moved to the railing, gazing out at the city below with eyes that held old pain. They destroyed me for it. Spread rumours about my business practices, my personal life, my sanity. Death by 1,000 whispers, each one designed to remind me that I would never belong, that I would always be less than. I'm sorry, I whispered and meant it. But what does this have to do with me? You called to me, Katherine. In that bathroom, with your desperate wish, you opened a door that should have stayed closed. You invited me in, and now... She turned back to me with that terrible smile. Now, I finally have a chance to finish what I started. The realization hit me like a freight train. The speech, that wasn't me talking. Oh, but it was. Eleanor said, her form beginning to shimmer like heat waves off summer asphalt. It was you, with my words, my confidence, my decades of accumulated rage. We're partners now, you and I. A merger, you might say. No. I stepped back, pressing myself against the glass doors. I want you out. I want my body back. I'm afraid that's not how this works, my dear. Eleanor's image was fading now, becoming translucent. You see, I've been waiting 40 years for someone like you. Someone with the same hunger, the same humiliation, the same desperate need for revenge. Someone willing to pay any price to make them pay. I didn't know, I gasped. I didn't agree to this. Didn't you? Her voice was growing fainter, but more insistent. When you wished to show them who you really are, when you begged for the power to make them see, what did you think that meant? Did you imagine strength would simply materialize from nothing? The terrace was spinning now, the city lights blurring into streaks of gold and white. I pressed my palms against my temples, feeling something foreign pulsing behind my eyes. Every great power requires sacrifice, Katherine. Every transformation demands a price. You wanted to be someone they couldn't dismiss, couldn't mock, couldn't reduce to nothing. I can give you that. I can make you untouchable. At what cost? I managed to ask through teeth that felt like they belonged to someone else. At the cost of being yourself. Eleanor's voice whispered directly into my mind now. But think about it, darling. What has being yourself ever gotten you? Mockery, humiliation, the constant knowledge that you'll never be enough. Her words wrapped around my thoughts like silk scarves, beautiful and suffocating. I can make you magnificent. I can give you the kind of power that makes them kneel. All you have to do is let me stay. In the glass doors, my reflection was changing, my posture straighter, my expression sharper, my eyes holding depths they'd never possessed before. I looked like someone who had never doubted herself, never apologized for existing, never backed down from a fight. I looked like someone I'd always wanted to be, but underneath the surface, I could feel Katherine, the real Katherine, growing smaller and smaller, like a candle flame guttering in an endless wind. Choose quickly, my dear, Eleanor's voice urged. Sarah and her friends are planning their counterattack. They're not used to losing, and they won't take tonight lying down. You'll need my strength for what's coming. Through the glass, I could see Sarah in the living room, her phone pressed to her ear, her face animated with fury. Whatever she was planning, it wouldn't be pleasant. The choice spread before me like a crossroads in a fairy tale. Keep Eleanor's power and lose myself, or reclaim my identity and face whatever vengeance Sarah had in store. But as I watched Sarah's cruel smile spread across her face, as I saw her hang up the phone and turn toward the terrace with predatory satisfaction, I realized something that chilled me to the bone. I might not have a choice at all, because Eleanor Ashworth was done asking permission. The choice was made for me when Sarah's voice cut through the night air like a blade. Katherine! She stood in the doorway to the terrace, her phone still clutched in her manicured fingers, flanked by Mark and Jessica like generals preparing for war. We need to talk. I felt Eleanor's presence surge inside me, her consciousness pressing against mine like water against a cracking dam. Let me handle this, her voice whispered in my mind, seductive and commanding. No, I whispered back, though my lips barely moved. I can fight my own battles. Eleanor's laugh echoed inside my skull. With what weapons, darling? Your hurt feelings? Your righteous indignation? Look at them. And I did look. Sarah's face was a mask of calculated malice, her earlier shock transformed into something far more dangerous. Mark had cleaned the wine from his shirt and straightened his tie. His boyish features hardened into patrician cruelty. Jessica's diamond earrings caught the light as she tilted her head, studying me like an entomologist examining a particularly interesting insect. I just got off the phone with Margaret Whitmore, Sarah continued, stepping onto the terrace with predatory grace. You remember Margaret, don't you? She runs the charity board where you've been so eager to volunteer? My heart stuttered. Margaret controlled half the non-profit organisations in the city, the very networks I'd been trying to break into for years. Turns out, Margaret was quite disturbed by your little performance tonight. Sarah smiled, and it was all teeth. She's concerned about your stability, your fitness for leadership roles. That's rich coming from you, I managed, but my voice wavered. This was exactly what I'd feared. The retaliation, the systematic destruction of everything I'd worked to build. Oh, but it gets better, Mark chimed in, pulling out his own phone. I've been texting with some friends at Morrison and Associates. Funny thing about regional director positions, they're so dependent on client relationships. And clients do talk to each other. Morrison and Associates. My company, my promotion, they were going to destroy it all. You see, Katherine, Jessica added sweetly, there are consequences for embarrassing your betters, for stepping out of line, for forgetting your place. Inside my mind, Eleanor's rage blazed like a supernova. Let me show them consequences, she hissed. Let me show them what happens when they threaten what's mine. But something strange was happening. As my terror mounted, as Sarah's threats hit home, I felt Eleanor's presence, shifting, weakening, like she was feeding off my confidence but starving on my fear. You think you can ruin me? I asked, and my voice was purely my own now, small, scared, but unmistakably mine. Over what? A speech about friendship? Over knowing your place, Sarah snapped. Over remembering that some doors only open for the right kind of people. And you, Katie, from wherever the hell you crawled out of, will never be the right kind. That's when I understood. Eleanor had been wrong about everything. You know what, Sarah? I stepped forward, and for the first time all night, my movement felt entirely natural. You're absolutely right. I'm not the right kind of people. She blinked, clearly not expecting agreement. I'm not the kind of person who inherited everything and earned nothing. I'm not the kind who needs to destroy others to feel important. I'm not the kind who mistakes cruelty for sophistication or viciousness for class. My accent was creeping back, flattening the vowels, marking me as other. But instead of shame, I felt something else rising in my chest. Something that belonged entirely to me. I'm the kind of person who builds things instead of inheriting them, who earns respect instead of demanding it, who creates value instead of just spending daddy's money. How dare you? Mark started, but I cut him off. How dare I what? Tell the truth? You want to destroy my career? Go ahead. You want to blacklist me from your little charity boards? Be my guest. Because here's what you don't understand about people like me. I could feel Eleanor's confusion now, her grip on my consciousness loosening as I claimed my own power. We don't need your approval to succeed. We don't need your networks to build empires. We don't need your validation to know our worth. You're delusional, Sarah laughed, but there was uncertainty in her eyes. Without connections, without the right background, without those things, I still made regional director at 28. Without those things, I still turned a failing department into the company's most profitable division. Without those things, I still have something you'll never possess. And what's that? Jessica sneered. The knowledge that everything I have, I earned. I smiled, and it felt like the first genuine expression I'd worn all night. You can take away my job, Sarah. You can block me from your clubs and your charities and your pathetic little social circle, but you can't take away my ability to build something new. Eleanor's presence was fading rapidly now, her 40-year-old rage no match for this moment of absolute clarity. You're making a mistake, she whispered desperately. They'll destroy you. Maybe, I admitted to both her and them, but I'll still be me when they try. And I'll still be me when I rebuild. Mark was pulling out his phone again, no doubt to make good on his threats. But I wasn't afraid anymore. Fear had been the door that let Eleanor in. Taking ownership of my choices, my voice, my power, that was the key to getting her out. Go ahead, I told them. Make your calls, spread your rumours, destroy everything you can reach, but remember this moment, when you had to gang up 3-on-1 against someone you considered beneath you. Remember how threatened you felt by a girl with the wrong accent and the wrong background? You're insane, Sarah breathed. No, I said, feeling Eleanor's last whispers fade to nothing. I am free. And I was. Free of their approval, free of their judgment, free of the desperate need to belong to a world that would never accept me. Free of Eleanor's borrowed power and ancient rage. I walked past them, headed for the door, when Sarah grabbed my arm. "This isn't over, Katherine. We'll make sure everyone knows what you really are." I looked down at her perfectly manicured fingers on my sleeve, then met her eyes. When I spoke, my voice carried all the strength Eleanor had tried to give me, but it belonged entirely to me. "Good. Make sure they know I'm the kind of person who stands up to bullies, who doesn't back down when threatened, who builds empires from nothing and does it with integrity." I gently removed her hand. "Make sure they know I'm exactly the kind of person they should be afraid of." 6 months later, I was running my own consulting firm. My first client was Margaret Whitmore, who'd been impressed by what she called my authentic strength after hearing about the party from 3 different sources. My second client was Richard Blackwood himself, who said he'd never seen anyone handle pressure with such grace. Sarah's social assassination campaign had backfired spectacularly. It turned out that in a world hungry for authenticity, being marked as dangerous by the elite was actually excellent marketing. But sometimes, late at night, I catch glimpses of Eleanor in mirrors and window reflections. She's not angry anymore. If anything, she looks proud, like she finally understands that the real power was never in becoming someone else. The real power was in becoming exactly who you were meant to be, even if, especially if, that terrifies them. Because some doors don't open for the right kind of people. They open for the dangerous kind. And I've learned to be very dangerous indeed.